Today we're going to be packing both of these coolers full of ice, and we're going to see how many days it takes sitting outside before that ice melts. So one of these coolers is a Yeti Tundra Haul that was 400 bucks. The other one is a $50 Coleman cooler, and we're going to see whether it's worthwhile paying almost 10x to get a Yeti cooler versus a Coleman. So if you're into that kind of thing, stick with us. So now we're going to load up both of these coolers with about 35 pounds worth of ice. So that's 6 ice bags in each of these. We're going to load the Coleman first, just so nobody complains that because we loaded it second, we've somehow skewed the results here. And from a temperature perspective, it's really hot and muggy out. It's pretty early in the morning here, and it's already up to about 72, 73 degrees Fahrenheit. And over the course of the day, we'll probably get up to 80. And looking at the forecast here over the next week, we've got pretty consistent weather. So it's not the sunniest weather, but we've got really hot, humid, muggy weather in and around that 80-degree mark. So I think it's going to be a perfect summertime experiment for these two coolers. Now, the other thing I want to mention is we haven't pre-chilled either of these two coolers. We started them off just at outdoor temperatures and then filled the ice in there. Frankly, we just felt like that's a better way to run this experiment. I don't know anybody that pre-chills their cooler, so that just felt like you were skewing the results if we went down that path. So the reason I wanted to run this experiment again is the Yeti cooler is almost 10 times the price as the Coleman. Now Yeti, they've done an incredible job of branding. They've built up an absolute cult following around the world. And I just wanted to see, running this experiment, whether that 10 times price difference was actually worth it, whether you get any additional functionality around that. Now I'm sure if you ask someone at Yeti why their cooler's better, they'd tell you about the fat wall system. So there's 5-centimeter thick walls along the base, the top, and the sides of this cooler. They then fill that with a commercial grade polyurethane foam. And that's really what is supposed to make this more insulative than just a traditional Coleman. And you can really see here just how different the thickness between these coolers is. Now the cooler's also supposed to be bear proof. Now I've never run into a bear wherever I've gone, but again, I don't do that much extreme camping. And then lastly, this thing is just built like a tank. You can really tell the quality of the handles, the quality of the wheels. These things are just enormously thick, but that also means extra weight. So when you look at the weight difference between the Yeti and the Coleman, this is almost 3 times heavier. The Yeti comes in at 37 pounds and the Coleman is just under 13 pounds. And that weight difference is a big deal. I mean, this is a very heavy cooler. And frankly, if you're considering a Yeti, I would definitely go with the Haul model. I got this as a gift and I was a little skeptical about getting the Haul at the outset. But when you pack this full of ice and drinks, there is no way you are lifting this by yourself. Now, even the Coleman has the wheels here as well with this pop-up handle. So it's not something that's unique to the Yeti at all. I just really like the feature of being able to grab a handle and tow this around like a suitcase. And then of course there's the price difference with this coming in at 10 times more expensive. Now the Coleman, they claim that ice can actually stay in this cooler for up to 5 days in temperatures of up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're not gonna hit 90 degrees Fahrenheit over the forecast period here. So I'm gonna check back in with you guys every day. We'll see how the ice is melting and we'll continue on with this experiment. So it's exactly 24 hours later. So we're gonna check in how the ice is progressing. It's a really similar temperature today. So we're at about 75 Fahrenheit. It's early in the morning again. So we will get up to the mid 80s. So let's crack open these coolers, see how it's going. So we'll start with the Yeti. Wow, look at this. It's basically one giant block of ice right now. There's a little bit of water at the bottom, but as you can see, still really large ice chunks here. And then with the Coleman, no, it's actually pretty similar. I'm impressed here. So it's one giant ice chunk. So now we're just gonna break this up so we can get some cans into here. As you break this up, you can see there's considerably more water at the base of the Coleman than there is at the Yeti. No problem with the drink still staying on the surface of the ice. And we'll do the same with the Coleman. Now I gotta say, after day one, I'm a lot more impressed with the Coleman than I was expecting. So it's day 2 here, time to check in. But first, we've definitely had a visitor overnight, dug into the garden. And if you can see here, there's a little bit of a paw print on the Yeti. Not quite a bear paw print, so still not worried we've had to put the bear proofness to a test, but let's check on this ice. So on the Yeti, the drinks are still in the top there. You can see there's a bit of water here at the bottom, but we still mostly just have ice chunks. Now I'll do the same on the Coleman. Yeah, you can really see day 2, the ice is really turning into water. There's still some good ice chunks in here though. I'm gonna say for day 2, this is still survived. Now I'm gonna break up the ice. So in addition to the thick walls, there's this silicone membrane that goes all the way around the Yeti cooler. So that really helps provide a perfect seal from the outdoors when you close it down and latch this guy up. In addition to the walls, I think that might be helping limiting the amount of warm, fresh air that gets into the cooler, and then consequently the ice has to re-cool down. So another little experiment I want to show you. It's about 75 degrees out here this morning on day 2, and the temperature on our deck is reading about 70 Fahrenheit. I don't know if you can see, but when we actually put it onto the Coleman, it's registering 68.5. When we put it onto the Yeti cooler, 69.5. So the exterior of the Yeti is almost the same temperature as our deck, while the exterior temperature of the Coleman is definitely cooler. So I think that's just the perfect example of how there really is more heat transfer going through the walls of the Coleman than there is on the Yeti. So it's day 3, we had a big rainstorm overnight. It's still about 72 degrees out. Wow, look at this. Still have a lot of ice in here, but definitely there's a ton of melt in the Yeti. Now we're gonna check in on the Coleman. Look at that. There's obviously less ice in here, and you can tell because when you put the cans on it, they just sink down, versus the Yeti, there's still enough structure within the ice to hold the cans on the surface. But these are both holding up pretty well. I want to check temps here just to make sure we've got an accurate reading. So 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Obviously they'd both be the same, but as this test goes on, that'll be an important stat. Once this gets down to water, we want to see if it's still holding the same temperature as it did with the ice water. And I think that's probably going to be tomorrow's test. So at the end of all this, we'll post the weather that we've had over this entire test period, just so you've got the exact temperature, humidity, temps through the day, overnight, so that you've got a good sense of what we're working with. All right, it's day 4, time to check in on these guys again. Okay, so we still have loads of ice in the Yeti. The ice is definitely melted to a point though, where the drinks aren't staying on the surface, but that's obviously still really nice and cold. In the Coleman, we're almost down entirely to water. So that's about the amount of ice that we have left in this, so considerably less than what we've got in the Yeti. But importantly, we want to check the temps here. So you saw yesterday when we did this, the water temp was 32. So we're still getting 32 here, which is about 0 Celsius, so right around freezing. Look at that. I thought this was gonna read 32 as well in the Coleman. We're at 37, so we already have a 5-degree temp difference on day 4. So weather-wise, this morning's about 73 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're projected to rise up to about 80 degrees during the day. Now again, Coleman claims their cooler can hold ice in here for 5 days. We're at the day 4 mark, and it's pretty much done. Now I want to see if tomorrow there'll be any ice actually left in this cooler, so stick with us. All right, it's day 5. Let's check in on the Yeti. Still have some ice in here. Still have plenty of ice that's still in large chunk form like that. We'll do a quick temp check. I'm sure we're still getting 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, 33. Now we'll check in on the Coleman. This is now completely water, and we'll check on temperatures. We're up to 54. Now we'll just quickly show you a few extra days here on the Yeti, just to show you how long the ice actually lasts. And now we'll pop up on the now we'll pop the weather up on the screen here just so that you can see the highs and the lows and the humidity, just so that we're fully transparent on this experiment. So there you have it, those are the results. The Yeti clearly outperformed the Coleman cooler. And you'd expect that for a cooler that costs almost 10 times as much. Now, am I telling you to go out and buy a Yeti? Absolutely not. I think what you should do is just really be thoughtful about what type of cooler that you need. Are you going to be going camping on trips that last longer than 3 or 4 days? And if you are, will you have access to ice over that period of time somehow that you could actually refill your cooler at the point that it starts to melt? Is the weight important to you? That's something we've talked a lot about through this video, that the Yeti's considerably heavier than the Coleman. So all I'm saying is that this experiment showed that ice lasts considerably longer in the Yeti. So if you are doing long trips, or you're going to be packing more than just drinks like meats or other foods that you really want to make sure maintain that chilled temperature so they don't go bad, you might want to consider investing in a Yeti. So that's it for this video. Hope you all enjoyed this little experiment. If there's other experiments like this you think we should try out, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.